I hope this is going to work. I'm trying to show how Soma Flex works, really. So apologies, it's handmade, but hopefully this will give you a very clear picture of what's happening with your Soma Flex when you're wearing it. So here's the vagina. Obviously, we have vaginas of all different shapes. No two vaginas are the same. People have the canal longer or shorter. Some people, here's a cervix. Some people born without a cervix. The uterus could be in all sorts of positions. It could be, sort of anterior placed, posterior placed, at an angle. So this part could sit differently within the pelvis. So if you can imagine, here is where the tampon would sit. Obviously, it's not proportional, this model. And when we wear a ring pessary, it's actually sitting high and holding the tissues further up into the canal. So when you use Soma Flex, it normally sits here. So once you've inserted your tampon, it's finger length or wherever sits comfortably as well. So hopefully that gives you an idea of where everything is. So pop the Soma Flex in, and it's just where the end of where the tampon would sit. So obviously within the vaginal space, we have different tissue consistencies. So you could have a very firm tissue, you could have more flexible and squishy tissues, and literally everything else in between. So what happens is once we've placed the Soma Flex in position, it reacts with a movement. So the natural movement around here, there's a lot of movement. Imagine when you're walking, you're jumping, you're running, bending, squatting. And this is one of the reasons I love the Soma Flex, because as we move, it moves with us and the tissues move together. So obviously we also have to put up with those ballistic type of movements that we experience. That's also the natural mechanics of coughing, sneezing, laughing. And what happens then, we get extra abdominal pressure, which obviously the Soma Flex can react to. And it helps sort of protect that space. So, yeah, vaginal tissues. I wondered how I could explain what's happening. So once you've got the Soma Flex in place, you can see how the tissues will literally sit comfortably. The best way I describe vaginal tissue is it's live, it's living, it's like an octopus. They breathe, they move, and everybody's slightly different. So the Soma Flex would literally sit, the tissues would blend around it, but you can have a variation between just the tissues sitting gently on top of the Soma Flex. The baggier tissues could have sort of more of sort of a blend together, so you may feel them going through the holes. But there's no suction, so there is no danger. The tissues still breathe. Yeah, and I'll explain a bit more about how that works. So the other kind of tissue you can have is very soft, what's the word? Vulnerable kind of tissues. Maybe if you had mesh removed, or for other reasons as well. Some tissues can be very delicate. This is why when you remove the Soma Flex, you're just very gentle with it, because it is living, it is real, it is breathing. So anyway, how to explain what's happening. So we've got the tissues that are blending nicely with the Soma Flex. And if you can think of it like kinesiology tape, we are quite used to seeing this on limbs externally, but why not use them, have the equivalent of the Soma Flex internally? Because as you can see, it allows movement, it allows flexibility, and it actually improves the body awareness, automatically activates through the natural movement. So as we're squatting, bending, flexing, the Soma Flex moves with us. It's multi-directional, and it just morphs into the position that we need it to. Excuse me. So you've got neurological training happening, gentle, sustainable strengthening, because we can have a mixture in the vagina, weak areas, hyper or hypotonic tissue. We can have scar tissue. So it can reduce tension where there is tension, and it can increase tone where there's lack of tone. So everything starts moving lovely together while we're moving and going about our daily activities. So it's a multi-directional shape-shifting device here. So this helps also improve proprioception. We have more of an awareness as our body moves. It creates a subtle internal sensation that helps our brain locate where our pelvic floor muscles are. And the pelvic floor can get these instructions and move really freely and clearly. So as we introduce the proprioceptive clues, as we're walking, as we're bending, as we're lifting, other activities, the Soma Flex engages with everything and it responds. So that's probably why it was a good idea to call it a responsive trainer. So not only are we encourage natural movement of all of the tissues, it supports endurance rather than short bursts of activity, and it helps integrate pelvic floor function into real life movement patterns. We move, it moves. So the proprioception side of things, it's all about the pelvic floor relearning how to respond and to move within our daily movement patterns, how to coordinate itself. And quite often we will lose proprioception through childbirth, menopause-related tissue changes, sedentary lifestyle. You know, it is important for all of us to keep moving. You could have chronic pelvic floor tension, and also we lose this reflective tone that before we've had children. Obviously, it's easier for our body in a less disturbed state without the trauma of childbirth. So it's kind of like, I love the idea of the real life movement patterns. So that way, by wearing the Soma Flex, you can build more efficient muscle firing patterns, support better timing. So when we do cough and sneeze, the pelvic floor responds better to the whole situation. And it helps restore balance within the whole of the core muscles that we have in the pelvic region. So why does all of this matter? You know, we're just conditioned not to talk about there or think about there. So by wearing the Soma Flex, you can gradually build strength without any strain. You can support your long-term movement and tone, reduce the risk of overworking or fatiguing the muscles because it's just worn with a very subtle information going on there. So by increasing your proprioception, you may increase pelvic floor muscle awareness, coordination, reflective activation, which is really important, and reduce those common symptoms that we all know and love. I do hope that has explained a little bit more of how Soma Flex works. It's just, how do you explain the different type of tissues that we have? How do you explain how it will all connect and everything starts moving to oxygenate and hydrate? It is different, and it's let's wear it and improve. So, okay.